guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Story Time, Bielsa Idiot Ruins Trick or Treating. I wanted to post this last night, but I was too busy with taking my kids trick or treating and working all night at the club for the Halloween bash we were hosting, so sorry this is a day too late. This happened when my eldest was 3. I was just getting off work and dog tired, but I wanted to make sure he had fun. I dressed him up in the costume I picked out for him, a frog, and was taking a few pictures when Bielsa Idiot comes screeching into the kitchen, drink in hand, and demands I take some photos of them together. After I take 2 quick photos, we're about to head out the door when Bielsa Idiot says she wants to go too. She takes more than 30 minutes just to get herself dressed, and Brandon was already in the midst of a tantrum because it was taking too long and he wanted to go. By the time she was ready, I was already feeling stressed out. We went out the door and started walking. Brandon stopped crying and was enjoying walking door to door getting his candy. He still couldn't form words that well yet, so whenever he knocked on a door, he would just hold up his pumpkin pail and say, "Fickerfeet." It was cute and I couldn't get enough of it. Bielsa Idiot was getting annoyed that Brandon wasn't getting more candy. 1 or 2 pieces at most, but that wasn't enough for her. Whenever we left a house she would complain that her baby boy wasn't getting more candy from these greedy a-holes. I was mortified as some of these poor people overheard it and I had to mouth apologies to them as we were leaving. She was also complaining about the cold and how long this was taking. It was embarrassing. We finally got to a house where there was a bowl of candy outside on the front step with a little sign that read, "Please only take 2 pieces." I go and help Brandon pick out 2 pieces he liked, and Bielsa Idiot charges through me, knocking me down, and grabs the entire bowl. He can have all of it. I tell her to stop and she promptly dumps the whole bucket into Brandon's pail and some pieces fall to the ground. Other kids and parents are behind us and watches me and her start to argue. She throws the bowl at me, hitting me in the face, and starts shrieking at me about how I'm a bad mom for not letting my son have the candy. Brandon begins crying again and the homeowner comes outside. He sees me trying to comfort Brandon and Bielsa Idiot in the middle of his yard, howling about how horrible Halloween is, and all of the other parents and kids just standing there and staring. He sees my son's pail and the candy on the ground and asks what was going on. Another kid tells him Bielsa Idiot tried giving the entire bowl to Brandon and he gets annoyed, saying he posted the sign so everyone got 2 pieces. Bielsa Idiot starts yelling at him that he is greedy and that if he didn't want someone taking all of the candy, he should have stayed outside to pass it out. They get into an argument and she threatened to call the police and claim he assaulted her. One of the parents says there are witnesses that will tell them she is lying. The homeowner tells her to leave, and in her embarrassment for being told off, she screams at everyone and leaves. Me and 2 other parents helped the homeowner pick up the mess, and we dumped the pail back out into the bowl and kept what one thought we had before coming there. I apologized for the situation and took Brandon out of there. I took him to the mall, where they were having a trick or treating event for the kids, so he still got a bunch of candy. I bought him some toys and he perked up pretty fast at that. We ate at the food court and went home. Every year after that, she refused to do trick or treating. No complaints there. The next story is titled, Roommate Demands to Illegally Keep a Dog. I, 31X, live in a mobile home complex, sharing a 3-bedroom trailer with my wife, 31F, and 2 roommates, 30M and 29F. Recently my female roommate gave us 30 days notice that she would be moving out because she had lost her job, the 3rd job she's lost since she moved in with us 6 months ago. And she found a boyfriend who would let her live with him rent-free. She did pay her last month's share of rent, which we paid the landlord last week. A few nights ago, the soon-to-be ex-roommate woke me up in the middle of the night to ask me if she could bring a friend's dog over for just a couple nights because he was being rehomed, and the person rehoming him needed to get rid of the dog immediately while the person taking the dog needed a couple days to get their house ready. I told her I was personally okay with it as long as it was only a couple days, and I assumed she would make sure it was okay with my wife and our other roommate too. I only found out after she brought the dog over that she had asked my wife, who told her she wasn't okay with it, and she didn't even ask our other roommate at all. Yesterday the roommate informed us that she had fallen in love with the dog and would be keeping it herself. She didn't even ask us if we were okay with that. The problem with that is, first of all, our complex requires a pet deposit of $100 per pet, which she refuses to pay because she's only staying here another month and can't afford it, and if she gets caught taking the dog out then we could get evicted. The other problem is her bedroom is right next to our other roommate's bedroom, and all the noise the dog is making plus all the noise she's making talking to the dog and taking him out to go to the bathroom every hour is keeping our roommate awake when he's trying to sleep. My wife and I can also hear her taking the dog out when we're sleeping because the front door is right next to our bedroom, and she loudly talks to the dog in the front yard. My wife, our male roommate, and I had a meeting with each other about this situation, which is when I found out that my wife told the roommate she wasn't okay with the dog at all, and our other roommate hadn't even been asked if he was okay with it. We all agreed that we weren't okay with her waking us up all the time and potentially getting us evicted if she gets caught, which would be pretty easy when she's taking this dog outside every hour and loudly talking to him. So, I took the initiative to calmly and politely tell her that we weren't okay with her keeping the dog here and she would need to find somewhere else to keep him until she moves into her new place. She went berserk. She started yelling at me demanding that I give her back her rent money, but I told her rent was already paid to the landlord. She then demanded that either we let her keep the dog or we pay her back what she paid for rent. She said we can just deal with the dog because it's only for a month. I told her we tried being nice about this, but she wasn't being fair to us. She needs to consider everyone in the house, not just herself. She's still refusing to get rid of the dog and it's going to take her a while to move all her stuff into her boyfriend's house. I'm not even sure if there's a way we can legally enforce her removing the dog without risking getting evicted for having an illegal animal. The next story is titled "Iada for refusing to rent out my parking spaces to my neighbors with kids and insulting them." I, 27F, am currently single. I purchased a nice big apartment in a quiet neighborhood a few years ago and along with it I also got 3 parking spaces, each for about $25K. This is a lot of money but at the time I figured parking was crap and it was about to get worse in terms of availability. That turned out to be true. I have 2 cars and my ex used to have 1, so we used all 3 spaces. Recently we broke up and I started traveling a lot. I let my baby cousin use one of my cars, so I had 2 free parking spots. I offered them to my only neighbor which I like. She is engaged but has no children. I rented them both to her for $100 even though realistically rent should be $700 minus $800. I checked, prices are going crazy, 1 space rents for $300 minus $400. The rest our neighbors were not a favorite choice of mine because honestly, they suck. One of my parking spaces is kind of small and I have a big BMW which I parked in that spot one night. The next day they had parked in such a way that I was unable to move without crashing into someone. When I asked them to move their cars and promised to just switch around parking spots so issue doesn't repeat, I got the answer, "You are smart enough to leave your car there, you should be smart to get it out. Don't you have a million cars? Go drive something else." I got them towed and they screamed their ass off, so that was fun. Suffice to say we are not friends with the 4 families involved in this fiasco, which is why my lovely neighbor, Sky, that even defended me got my parking spots. People noticed Sky's cars and only a few days later they made a building association meeting, something I have not been invited to in a year, and sat me down and let me know that the parking situation is unfair. They said I have to put the parking spots up for the whole building and have a rent auction for who will pay the most. They said they feel I was being unfair as they had kids and Sky didn't. I felt bad and talked it over with Sky. She agreed her and her fiancé can manage with one of the bigger parking spaces which barely fits 2 cars, the second blocking the first. Well, they weren't happy. Apparently, they all wanted this big parking space because it is in the shade, and they can put slides and other contraptions for their kids to play in. I let them know this makes me uncomfortable as I will be back at some point, and I do not want anyone to invest anything. They called me selfish and an idiot. I got upset and told one of the moms who was on my case about my lip fillers that kids are a choice and that does not make her special. She kept saying, "No wonder you are single, no wonder you don't have kids." She called me a rich spoiled brat. No one except Sky speaks with me anymore. Should I just give them the freaking parking spot they want? Iada? Comment said, "Not the a-hole. You bought those parking spaces, they are yours. It's not your fault they lacked the same foresight. You could get one of those Fisher-Price cars and leave it in your other spot as a direct duck you to your entitled neighbors. It sounds like them not speaking to you is a blessing." Another comment said, "Not the a-hole. Oh, you shouldn't even give them a chance to rent any of your spaces. They can't choose who you rent to. You own it. You get to decide. For all they know, you're not renting it, you just told your neighbors they could park there. Duck them. If they come at you with some BS, tell them to call your lawyer. The next story is titled So I'm Responsible for a Manager's Job? I, 25F, am tired of my current job, fast food. This is why. This past Wednesday, I was completely fine at work because the store is closed on Thanksgiving. Then Thanksgiving rolls around, and I started getting a sore throat. Nothing major, right? Well, not exactly. The next day I started feeling a little sicker with small panic attacks all while at work. Side note. Most of my panic attacks have to be triggered by something. So, if nothing is triggering it, then I know I'm definitely sick with something. I told my manager at the time I wasn't feeling well, and she made an attempt to call in someone to take over my shift. This was at around 10 p.m. because lobby closed at midnight, but no luck. So, I sucked it up and kept pushing myself thinking I was going to be fine after that, right? Wrong again. Yesterday, I went to the doctors, and they confirmed I have the flu because I was way worse than on Friday with a probable 101 fever. My husband was not happy about how they were treating me at work because he knows I called them 3 hours before my shift started telling them I can't come into work that day. Shift started at 6. They, the manager at the time, said that they'll send me a list of contacts to call, but that never happened. I called again and it was a different manager. I told her what happened. She understood that previous manager failed to send me the list, but she also said that I'm still getting a write-up for not calling someone to take my shift and that it was in my orientation. Here's the petty revenge. Doc said I can't go back to work until 12:01, and I have to be fever-free for 24 hours. Fever broke this morning, I'm not going into work at all until the 1st, then I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice that day. That or they fire me for no reason because it's an at-will state, which I don't care either way. Regardless, if I'ma be petty, I'll be petty in a professional way. The next story is titled I'm Back in the Game. Sort of. Recently I decided to turn all my years of night auditing into a career in accounting. Turns out, to a lot of places, it doesn't matter if you've spent 15 years crunching number as a night auditor, they care if you did it as an accountant. So I was met with a lot of, we've chosen to go in a different direction. Emails. That is until I saw a listing for an accounting position at a hotel. They called me in for an interview, I got the job. They lowballed me pay-wise, but I'll take the L for the sake of experience. The front desk is an absolute crap show. Checking rooms out to cash, when no cash was taken. No shows not being billed for as far back as at least the beginning of the year. Deposits not being taken for third-party reservations. Guests being checked in with no method of payment. Open folios out the ass. And it's largely because of poor training. The turnover rate is so ridiculous, they just gave up on really trying to train people. And this particular property isn't even paying competitive to the competitors. Having said all of that, I'm loving the job. I sit behind a desk and click-clack for 8 hours. No dealing with guests. No answering the phone. For the first time in a long time, I don't mind going to work. My office is pretty close to the front desk, and I hear all of the things that go on. Every rude, disrespectful, entitled guest. Every phone call answering the same questions over and over and over again. I try to periodically go up to the desk and lighten the mood. Because I remember how difficult their job is. And it's tough even looking at the front desk, let alone being behind it. It reminds me of how freaking miserable I was. So to everyone still behind the desk, you're goddamn superstars. And to everyone in front of it, to quote James A. Janice, be good people. The next story is titled Upgraded Room. I travel a lot, and have followed this sub for a bit. I knew there were some people who are hard to deal with, so I wanted to say you guys are awesome, and put up with so much. I had traveled to DC with my hubby and daughter for a weekend escape. She had made the dean's list and got a weekend trip of her choosing. She chose DC. I booked our hotel for one room. My daughter was a young teen at the time, so I wasn't comfortable with her in a room by herself. My hubby snores like a freight train, and he is not her dad. It might have been an awkward weekend at times, but we were happy to be there to celebrate her. Everything was fine at check-in. The front desk staff surprised us by upgrading us without being asked, and gave us a suite with an adjoining living room area with a pull-out bed. This allowed some privacy for my daughter and my husband. She thought that was the absolute coolest that she had her own suite. To the staff that went above and beyond, thank you. I left a great review, but I wanted to know if reviews really matter? The next story is titled Junkie from the Area Threatens Me. Well, so. I work as a concierge in a 4-3-star hotel in a really nice area from a big city. Boring day so far, so the receptionist in turn gets a call from the back office and tells me to cover in case of check-in. I do know all the processes, so whatever, I do it and he takes around 30 minutes. Everything was fine until a junkie from the area that we usually see just begging for cigs and money across the street in different hotels decides to get inside. He's known for doing this and pretend to be a tour guide offering his services. His English is really good. Sounds like an actual American, and I'm from a Spanish-speaking country. First time I heard him talking. He comes to me and asks for the bathroom. Didn't really want to let him in for obvious reasons, so I told him that they're under maintenance, and he freaks out and casually threatens to kill me if I don't. I broke up with my girlfriend and that time, so I didn't really process any emotions in that moment, so I just told him, whatever, then get in, and he does without me actually knowing if he had a gun or not. As soon as he gets in, I call security, which was in his break, to kick him out. All he says is sorry, and our guy kicked him out until the police comes, but apparently they did nothing. Just days later he comes and leaves some sandwiches in front of our entry for God knows what reason, and never came back inside the hotel. I still see him crossing the street when I'm on my shift, but maybe he was so high he doesn't even remember it was me. The next story is titled This Laffy Got Offended BCS We Can't Accept Payment in Bosnian Currency. The hotel I work in isn't in Bosnia. This happened a couple of months ago. We had a group of 20 guests from Bosnia. They were all going to some kind of family gathering and, luckily, everything was paid in advance by their host. I gave them keys and sat down to check them in when one of them approached me and asked if she can get a drink. I told her that I will get it in a minute, and then we had this conversation. But I have to ask you something first. Do you accept marks? Me. Marks as Bosnian convertible marks? That is correct. Me. No, madam. She looked like I spitted her in the face. She made a disgusted face and said something along the lines, "Dear God, what a craphole." She seemed deeply offended and shocked at the same time. Me. You have an exchange office less than 200 meters from here. I can't walk there. Don't you have any empathy? Yes, she used that word. We had a long trip. It's less than 3 hours drive, to be precise, from the city she lives in to the city I live and work in. Me. Madam, the exit to highway is less than half of a kilometer from here. All times our guests had a long trip, but no one ever asked us to pay in Bosnian or any other foreign currency. I can show you how to find an exchange office, it's a 2-minute walk. I already told you that I can't go there. Me. Well, then I can't serve you. I'm terribly sorry, but accepting payment in any currency other than Serbian dinars is illegal. She stormed out, and both her and some other people, her relatives, obviously, treated me like the crap. Next morning, we didn't have a waiter, so I had to serve them coffee. Luckily, it was only a one-night stay. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.